Weigh in, we welcome Kieran Michael Laylor, a New York Assemblyman, also welcoming back panelist Tom Borelli. All right, guys, so Governor Cuomo didn't mention the rising crime in New York City, but he did describe his handling of the pandemic as beautiful. Kieran, what are your thoughts when you hear the governor say that?
I think he's delusional. Actually, I don't think he's delusional. I think he's very smart and very cynical, and he's trying to flood the zone with misinformation about his handling of the COVID virus. The fact is, even if you adjust for population, there's 5 times more deaths in New York State due to corona than in states like Texas and Florida. I think it's a joke that he's writing a book. It would be like the captain of the Titanic writing a book, except the captain of the Titanic went down with the ship. Andrew Cuomo is pretending like the ship didn't sink. He's trying to profit from it, both financially and also politically, by taking to the national stage and patting himself on the back.
Yeah, Andrew Cuomo's getting interviews on late night shows, and as we saw, he's getting that speaker spot at the DNC. Tom, weigh in on that. The fact that he is writing a book when we can clearly point out that his response to the coronavirus pandemic, it wasn't perfect. In fact, it was very flawed.
Oh, Emma, certainly it was flawed. In fact, it was tragic. First of all, New York State has the 2nd highest death rate in the country, just behind New Jersey, which is obviously equally as bad. But most really revealing is the fact that Cuomo ordered COVID-infected patients into nursing homes and into elderly care facilities. That's essentially sending in an infectious agent into a vulnerable population. And what's worse, he knew it when he was questioned about it, and I think it took over a month to reverse that course. And over that period of time, we've lost somewhere between 6,000 and 11,000 people who were the most vulnerable. For him to now take a victory lap is actually disgusting, but it really shows what happens when the media doesn't play its role of holding elected officials accountable. He is a major propagandist, and the American people really need to wake up to vote these types of people out, because they will literally kill people and then say they did a beautiful job.
Yeah, you feel your heart breaks for the people who lost loved ones during this time under his leadership. It might not have happened had he not made those orders and those decisions. I want to move on and address another issue that we're seeing in New York City and other cities across the nation. This major spike in crime and violence right now. And Kieran, it's one thing that wasn't even touched on at the DNC. It's almost as though these leaders are choosing to ignore this issue that is plaguing our nation right now.
Absolutely, and I think the reason for that is most major cities, if not every major city, is not only run by a Democrat mayor, but the city councils are overwhelmingly Democrat. The police departments are run by Democrats. The school systems are run by Democrats. The whole city in places like New York City, Chicago, and elsewhere, they've been run by Democrats for generation after generation, and there is misery, there is crime, there is poverty. Democrats have gotten the federal anti-poverty programs, so-called, that they've wanted over the years. They get the state policies that they want in big states like New York and Chicago. And yet there are these major problems. This is where you see the most crime, the most misery, the most poverty. And I think the reason you don't hear this at the DNC is because it begs the question, if you're going to do for the United States what you've done for Baltimore, New York City, and Chicago, the American people are going to say, no, thank you. Please do not do what you've done for the cities in this country to the entire country. That would be an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah. And Tom, I'm wondering, obviously everyone's up against a challenge when you're trying to host a virtual convention at this time, but I have a feeling that this violence and unrest will be brought up at the RNC. If you're looking at it from a strategist perspective, what's the best approach to sort of point it out and then offer a solution of how to fix it?
Well, certainly the videos and the crime data is the best way to do it, because the videos and the pictures do not lie. And the fact that you have cities like New York City, where Mayor de Blasio has changed policing tactics, which obviously hasn't worked, and defunding police. It is a major political opportunity for Republicans and President Trump to position themselves as the law and order party. And whatever color you are, wherever you live, as a human trait, you're concerned about safety and security. That's a core human value. Democrats are running against that. They're not for safety and security. They have bail reform in New York City, like criminals in the streets, and they commit crimes, including rape, on the first day they're out. There are, unfortunately and tragically, too many stories out there, but Republicans really need to seize on that to educate the rest of America, because not every news organization like Newsmax is out there talking about this important issue. So it's up to President Trump and for Republicans to use that opportunity next week to communicate to the American people the dangers of Democrats running cities and the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Kieran, you know, we've got a little bit of time left. Want to just get your thoughts on what we heard from New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez last night. She seconded the nomination of Senator Bernie Sanders. Does that kind of speak to where the Democrat Party is heading? I know Bernie Sanders not the top of the ticket here, but he's made it pretty clear that his ideas are going to be included in their policy.
Yes, a freshman senator, a freshman congresswoman who won the election basically by winning a primary with a few thousand votes, is the most important member of the United States Congress, at least on the Democrat side. It's pretty amazing. Bernie Sanders said it himself. Ideas that were radical just a couple years ago are now mainstream in the Democrat Party. AOC's presence, even if truncated to just 60 seconds of a recorded set of remarks, says it all. That someone who's an avowed socialist, who wants to bring socialist programs to the United States and make us more like Venezuela and all these other failed states, that someone like that would get a speaking slot at the DNC convention and be such a prominent player in that party, says it all about where the Democrats are going. The Democrats are heading much more towards AOC and Bernie Sanders than they are JFK and Harry Truman.
Kieran Michael Layler weighing in for us today. We appreciate your time. Tom Borelli, a lot more to talk to you about after the break.